Excellent. Okay, good, good. So literally, I've only just finished a really, really lovely session, and my head is half on Little Beelings, which is a beautiful little school, and half on what I'm actually going to be talking about myself. But what I thought I wanted to do really was to just give you a bit of basic information really about Summerhill School. I've done this talk many times around the world, but I thought it's just a nice opportunity for people to just sort of get some basics to a certain extent of Summerhill and how we do things. It will probably help leading into some of the lovely Q&A sessions that we're going to be having on Sunday, and mine and Zoe's talk that we're going to have on Saturday as well, and also into some other things on Monday. Really sort of fundamentally talking about A.S. Neal. So A.S. Neal founded Summerhill School in 1921, hence we're in the wonderful centenary celebration that we're in now. He believed in educating the whole child. Now, this is sort of really the area that I'm going to be focusing on, the educating of the whole child. He believed it was much more important to be educating the heart before the head. You've got to do both, and that's fine. But really the priority A.S. Neal believed was much more to do with social emotional development and giving children the opportunity really to the time, the space and the opportunity to fulfill their childhood needs. And to allow childhood to breathe, really, I think is another quite a nice way of putting it. So at Summerhill, we one of the, well, actually, arguably the most important area that we talk about at Summerhill is freedom. Now, obviously, freedom, as everybody will be implementing in many different ways and understands it in many different ways, but freedom at Summerhill, from our perspective, does need to be explained a little bit, because we don't really, it's pure freedom that the children have, but responsibility comes with that. So at Summerhill, we say freedom, not license. And this is so that you have the freedom to be yourself. You have the freedom to make the decisions. You have the decisions to play all day, to wear pajamas all day, but you can't infringe on someone else's freedom. So you can't upset someone else. You can't do things that will infringe on their personal freedom as well. So sort of to a certain extent, kind of like freedom with responsibility is sort of the way of thinking about it to a certain extent. And it's a very important part, and it comes into quite a few different areas of Summerhill that I'll explain as well. So the first element of freedom, not license, is personal freedom, not license. We're talking about me, we're talking about you, and we're talking about I have freedoms and I can't interfere with yours, and we have to live with each other is roughly how it works. But you also then have freedom and responsibility to a certain extent to community. We live as a community. It's an international boarding school, so we have children who live there all of the time. The age range, so I'll just quickly say, the age range is from 5 to 18. So we actually live as a community. And that automatically has responsibility. We have responsibility to each other as individuals, but the community has to run. We have to get together to make decisions in our meetings. Sorry, I'll just correct quickly. That doesn't mean the meetings are compulsory. But there's a sense of responsibility to a certain extent that the children of the community feel, and so as the different ages go through, the younger children generally will be playing and not paying that much attention to the meetings. But actually, I can see in the corner we've got Class 1 Summerhill. I think I can see Kat there. I don't know, Kat, is that you? Oh no, she can't hear me. Hi, Kat. Kat will be pretty much in every meeting helping to make decisions and running the school. But generally, the responsibility kind of comes a little bit more as the children get a bit more older. The running of committees, the chairing of meetings, the putting children to bed and waking them up in the morning. These sort of living, if you will, the living, coming back to the living and the learning, the living element of the school, it takes a lot of responsibility. And to a certain extent, what's very nice, I know that the word responsibility can be misunderstood a little bit, and I think it's important that that's taken with light. It's not any sort of in a pressurized kind of way. It's just that when you live like that, it just comes about. You just have to do these things, and so that's so the freedom not license works for personal freedom, but it also works for community freedom, and it's another really important part of it. The community gives you freedom, and you have to give something to the community. The next important part of freedom not license is the actual learning aspect of Summerhill. Now, the learning aspect of Summerhill, the freedom not license is very important so that we can celebrate the individual and them following their interests and the time that they need to discover those interests, the time they need to breathe, to find out who they are, to find out what it is that they like, what they don't like. They want to push boundaries, do all the wonderful and beautiful thing that children do. But to have that time so that they can enter into it. And this is why the non-compulsion at Summerhill is so important. It gives children, first of all, from a school's perspective, it says the priority here is you play. And you play and you play and play and play until you play, and then you play a bit more. And then when you've played, you play, and then you play. I'm sure you get the gist roughly of what I'm saying of the importance of play, because that's what children do. Kind of naturally. I'll just quickly mention this. Zoe once wrote this in one of the booklets that we have at the moment. Of the first thing that you see when you arrive at Summerhill is children playing. They play. I'm not going to remember it exactly, but they play inside out. They play indoors. They play outdoors. They play upside down, and they play the right way up. They play like kittens rolling out of. Kittens tumbling out of a box. Now, I think that sort of sets the free play that happens at Summerhill. It really is free. Us adults, and I can see I'm just going to have to mention this. Jason Preter is with us. Jason, so lovely to see you. Really, really lovely to see you. He's an ex-teacher and is a part of an organisation called Summerhill Democratics, and is a lovely, lovely friend. And he was an ex-teacher. And I remember him even saying that when he was teaching, generally he would set up a lesson and he would go and sit outside and do very little and leave it to the kids. And that's pretty much coming the sort of thing. So play at Summerhill, it belongs to the child, and it really is free. Us adults, we get on with our own lives and we do our own jobs and do what it is that we do, and we let the children just play. So this that's the freedom element of the freedom not license in the learning environment at Summerhill School. But where the responsibility to a certain extent comes is it comes from self-responsibility, really. We all know that actually when it is that you're doing when you have to do some learning, if you're getting ready for some GCSEs qualifications, and if it is that you want to be a scientist, a doctor, a surgeon, if you want to become a surgeon, well, you're going to have to knuckle down and do some work. It's not just going to fall out of the sky. And to a certain extent at Summerhill, we like the fact that we have a lovely sense of sincerity with the kids, to be honest, to say, you've got the choice, we're here to help you, but you're the one who's going to have to do the work. We're right behind you all of the way, and we'll support you in every single thing you want to do. But in the end, that is part of the responsibility that comes with the freedom that you have. It's not a magical thing that happens. we live in a world of qualifications and bits and pieces like that. And of course, maybe there can be other ways of doing things like that. But the reality is, I think I could safely say every person in this little Zoom meeting, if you were going to have an operation, you'd want to make sure that the surgeon was well experienced, was very well educated, and very passionate about what they do. And those things are an important part. And I think that from Summerhill's perspective, we like to give the time and the freedom for children to play, to fulfill their childhood, to fulfill the social and emotional development that is required for them or that they need. And then to enter into the learning environment, to find interest, to find enthusiasm, to find passion, and then to start looking at those next steps and be thinking, okay, so do I want to go to college? Do I want to go to university? Do I want to travel? Do I want to do I can't remember the word now, but anyway, it'll come. But whatever those next steps that you're deciding that you're wanting to be doing, to start to think about those and to prepare for them. So that's when talking of freedom, not license, and this is hence again why freedom, not license at Summerhill is really is sort of fundamental to everything we do. I'm now going to just quickly talk a little bit about to backtrack a little bit to sort of the community element, the social emotional development, because obviously another very important word that comes up as part of Summerhill's founding philosophies is equality. Now, equality, to a certain extent, quite obviously, you may already have realized that it comes from freedom, not license. You know, I've got freedom and you've got freedom, and we have to live with each other. So we have to respect each other. We have to understand that gender and age and all of these different things go out of the door when you're respecting each other as individuals. So the equality, so freedom, not license, to a certain extent, leads directly onto equality. But equality, I'm going to be mentioning in a few different contexts. The first for equality is actually how we make our decisions in the meeting, and how we actually are within the meeting. So I have an equal vote to everybody within the community. So a child of 5 or 6 years old in the meeting, we all have the freedom to we all have the freedom to raise our hand and to say what we think and to vote on decisions and be a part of it all. But none of us have anything over the other person when it comes to meetings. And so that's sort of the first part of equality. Now, the other one, I guess, to a certain extent, comes about with sincerity. It's about emotional. It's about how you are, how you treat each other, and how you feel about each other, and how honest you are with each other, and things like that. And this also comes very much with equality as well. Actually, with the freedom and the meeting process. I guess the word sincerity might be a better way of emotional sincerity. So this is another part that is a very important thing. Summerhill is everybody's very, very emotionally real with each other. We're very relaxed. We're very sincere. I guess that being sincere to ourselves is kind of how we really find out who we are, but also the acceptance of everybody else that you're living with as well. I think that everybody would agree that children are perfect in every way, because of all of the ups and downs. We're not always perfect. That is the reality, but that's part of the beauty of childhood, really. And children need that time to push boundaries, and they need the time to learn about relationship, to experience emotions, to experience disappointment sometimes, to love and to hate, and to do all of these wonderful and terrible things that I still call them all wonderful things, really. I have it quite difficult to sort of say that those elements are bad, because actually they're such a wonderful, beautiful part of childhood. But I guess that sincerity, I guess that to a certain extent, the freedom, not license, the equality, the meeting process, which I'll talk about in a minute as well, allows for that real beautiful sincerity that happens. Those really wonderful relationships that are built at Summerhill that are really, you feel them deep, you know, you feel them so deep in your heart. It's a lovely bond. And it's not that you absolutely, you know, you can be annoyed by people and whatever else, but there's a very deep trust and acceptance of everybody as individuals. Love, actually, a very deep and sincere love for each other as community members. Warts and all, I think, is another lovely expression that Zoe uses sometimes. Yeah, so I won't talk much more about the community aspect, although it's a very powerful and very beautiful thing. The boarding school element of Summerhill means that children have a very deep emotional or emotional freedom to a certain extent. And I know that's quite a statement, but it's a very true one. I guess that with in the family life, as wonderful as everything is, sometimes those very deep emotions and those deep connections between your parents, we see that children very often come to Summerhill and they can really be emotionally free, and it's a very powerful thing. So, okay, I'm just going to talk about the meeting process for a bit, keeping an eye on the time. So at Summerhill, we have 3 meetings per week, very practical. And very sincere. We do all of our conflict resolution in these meetings, and we make all the decisions about our day-to-day living as a community. So we make laws, and we have a lot of laws. Now at Summerhill at the moment, we have something roughly over 450 laws that the community has made, and I can imagine you're all thinking, okay, that doesn't sound much like freedom. These laws have all been made by the community, by the children, to sort of help, to a certain extent, to help simplify and clarify the boundaries of living within a community. And I think for children, this is something that really helps in quite simple form. It really helps to make it nice and simple. I'll use an example in a few minutes to explain this. So we make laws within the community. We can change laws, we can drop laws, and this is something that happens at the school all the time. It's constantly evolving. Our law book is constantly evolving, and I think that we've got so many laws, I guess, because there's, you know, if you ask a child, they'll probably only know about 50 or so that actually really matter to them, and the other ones won't really affect. I'll talk about this a little bit more again with this example I'll use in a second. So it's a very generally it's non-compulsory, the meeting process, but most children, generally most of our community, I would say, quite on a bad day, I would say 60 to 70% will turn up. On a good day, we'll have basically 195 to 100, but it might even be more than that. All the children at the school really feel like it's an important, I guess, that they value their own voice so much and their own part of the community that they really want to be there, because it's where important things happen. And so generally the turnout to our meetings is very high. So, okay, I'm going to tell you a little. Huh? There's a question as well. Oh, cool. Okay. 1 second. Okay, what I'll do, Thomas, I can just see you've got a question there. What I'll do, Thomas, I'll just tell this little story just quickly to sort of emphasize the freedom not license, and I'll to the meeting process. Sorry, and then I'll come back to your question. So just to sort of show how the process of it all works, and to add a little bit of silliness to the talk. A few years ago we had a trampoline come to Summerhill School, and obviously at the very beginning there was lots of conflict. No, it's my turn. No, you've had a longer go than me. It's my turn, and so on and so on and so on. And so what happened is the trampoline came to the meeting for us to make some decisions and to make some laws about the trampoline. I'll just correct myself a little bit there. We didn't actually take the trampoline to the meeting, because that would have been, well, it would have been the best meeting, I think, ever if we actually took a trampoline to the meeting. So, but we didn't. So we didn't actually take the trampoline to the meeting. We took the topic of discussion to the meeting, and we came up with some laws. So the first two laws that we came up with, the first one was no shoes on the trampoline. I mean, it seems pretty simple and pretty good. The second law that came up was that you're free to use the trampoline as much as you like, but if someone else comes along to use the trampoline, then you have 5 minutes, and then you have to get off the trampoline and let someone else have a go. So, and again, that sort of seems pretty good. And I think I can safely say now, actually, well, all of our class 1 kids will be able to tell you about this law, but it's been around for probably 15 to 20 years, and it hasn't changed. So it's a law that works very, very well within our community. One day, I just need to explain my role quickly at Summerhill School. I'm the deputy principal of the school. I'm also the deputy safeguarding lead, and I work a lot with risk assessment. So I have a very, very responsible job within the community. I'm also a bit of an ambassador, and I travel around the world and do talks and so on. And as part of my very responsible role at Summerhill, I went onto the trampoline, and I went on the trampoline, obviously testing it for risk assessment reasons. And I was really nicely enjoying my time on the trampoline, obviously for risk assessment, very responsible deputy principal. I'm sure you all get that. So I was jumping around on the trampoline, doing my bit. Right, now, so a 6-year-old girl comes up to the trampoline and she goes, "Henry, you have 5 minutes." I'm standing there now looking and thinking, okay, so not quite as happy as I was before. My freedom's been limited, but it's okay. I can put up with it, 5 minutes. And I was thinking, she's only 6. She probably will just forget and walk away. She won't, that'll be fine. She turns to me again and she says, "Henry, you now only have 4 minutes." Starting to think a little bit, okay, maybe I'm starting to feel my rights here, okay, I'm going to carry on. And she was looking at her watch like this, and she said, "Henry, you now only have 3 minutes. 3 minutes left." I'm starting to now feel about being in Summerhill School and thinking, okay, so I'm not too sure about giving equality and rights to, I'm starting to think, actually, I want to be on this trampoline as long as I want. So she then turns around and says, "Henry, you now only have 1 minute left." And I can see I can see the satisfaction she's getting out of this as well. The real satisfaction in her face as she's got on me anyway. So, and then it ends and she says, okay, Henry, right, get off. 5 minutes is over. Get off. And obviously, as the very responsible adult, deputy principal, I go, and I carry on jumping on the trampoline. Very, very responsible, obviously. Okay, so she says, okay, right, Henry. Oh, right then, Henry. Okay, I'm going to go and get an ombudsman. So an ombudsman, I'll just quickly, it's a committee of older children within the community. And they are the carriage kids, generally of our oldest members who have been at the school for many years, and they then sort of help with conflict resolution. It's more of an instantaneous conflict resolution. So instead of waiting for the meeting, you can go to an ombudsman to help solve a problem. So this girl runs off and goes and gets an ombudsman. I'm, whilst in the meantime, enjoying a little bit more trampoline time. Okay, so she comes back with this carriage kid, and she's holding his hand like this. He's a big guy, really big, like this. That's the other thing about living in a community. You've got all of the ages, sort of thing. So, and so he comes over to the trampoline and he says, "Henry, get off! Boy, it's big. It actually looks quite good. If I sort of, it was a bit like that when you were at the trampoline. It's like that. He was like, "Oh, Henry, get off!" And even I was looking up to him, and I was standing on the trampoline. So anyway, so. I then turn around to him and I go again. And so the girl and the ombudsman both turn to me and say, "Henry, right, that's it. We're bringing you up." And so the next day in the meeting, I'll just explain how this process works. So the girl goes at the beginning of the meeting, the girl goes to the secretary and she says, "I want one case." Remember, she's 6 years old. She says, "I want one case." And she then goes and sits down, and the chairperson and the secretary start the meeting, and they go through all of the cases one by one. And eventually they get to her case, and the chairperson says her name, and she says she's bringing Henry up. She's bringing me up for breaking the trampoline law, the 5-minute trampoline law. And so the chairperson looks at me and says, "Henry, did you do it?" And obviously, as the responsible adult that I am, I said, "No, of course I didn't do it. No." And then the ombudsman put up his hand and said, "Yes." So she came and got me, and I went and I told him, and he still didn't get off. And so she had a witness as well. And there was a proposal that was taken that I get a 24-hour trampoline ban, which means that for 24 hours, I am not allowed to use the trampoline. So, as you can probably possibly imagine, I was a little bit disappointed with this. I was the only one who voted against, as you can imagine. Everybody voted, so I looked a little bit silly. So that means that for the next 24 hours, I'm not allowed to use the trampoline. So, in a little bit of a nutshell, and as a little bit of a lovely, silly story, and what I won't tell you is whether the story was true or not, because obviously it was, or maybe it wasn't, but it gives you a bit of an idea of how the process works. I think one thing I'll say about that, so there's something that's really important in that situation that relates to how conflict resolution happens at Summerhill. First of all, we keep things quite simple. We're very sincere with each other, but we keep things quite simple. The reality is the person who has had the victim, if you will, they want justice. They want justice because it wasn't fair. that I broke the law. It doesn't matter whether I'm an adult and they're a child, or it doesn't matter if it's two children of the same age, or it doesn't matter anything about it. As individuals, it wasn't fair that I broke the law that was put in place. So that's the first bit. The second part is the fine that was given to me. It's used as a deterrent. It's not a personal thing. It's not saying that I am a bad person. It's not. We don't class them as punishments in that kind of context. It's about it being a deterrent. It's about it just deterring people from doing the action again, basically. It's a very successful, and I think to a certain extent that's what's so lovely about it. The meetings at Summerhill are very, very active. All the time. You'll have very little children bringing up things. You'll have older people bringing up things. You'll have staff members bringing up things. It's they're very, very lively and very, very wonderful parts. I've just realized I've literally only got 5 minutes left now. And I can already see that Shelley is here, and she's going to be our next speaker that will be talking. So what I'll do is sorry, Thomas, I see that there's the question. So I'll just answer your question there. So what is meant by freedom? What is meant by license in freedom, not license? In the US, license means permission to do something, especially formal permission from a government or other. Yes, that's very true. License in this context is when you look at the definition of license, there's license that really is absolute freedom that allows you to dominate over other people. It's really absolute. The license that, if you look in a dictionary, the license, the meaning of the word license that I'm talking about here is that they use it in the army, they'd use it in war to say that you've got the freedom then to just completely do whatever you want whenever you dominate over another country and things like that. So license is absolute, so much so that you can dominate over someone else. So this is where when ASNL talks about it as freedom, not license, so that the freedom, and this is again why we define it a little bit more sort of freedom with responsibility. So it's not the absolute freedom sort of thing, basically. Cool. Okay, maybe I can take one more question if anybody else has a question. Sorry, it was cut a bit short of my talk because of the lovely talk that we had beforehand, and that went over a little bit extra. But if anybody has a question, then I've got a few more minutes.
Can I ask one, please?
Yes, Dasha, yes.
Hello, thank you for the talk. And my question is, what is, in your opinion, the best, oh, wow, sorry, background noise, the best system or an element of a system implementing that is not designed to put out fires, but is acting as a helper to the system itself?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the question. I think there's a bit of background noise as well. Sorry, Dasha, do you want to just could you explain that a bit more clearly? Sorry.
Yeah.
A system.
Sorry. So the whole schooling system, it is supported by different democratic whatever elements. Which one, in your opinion, is acting to support the system against putting out fires, kind of thing?
Acting against putting out fires. So, I mean, I think that's to a certain extent why it was very important to talk about the importance of freedom, not license. I feel that to be honest with you, those absolute foundation stones of Summerhill really are what we lean on the absolute most to, so that we can create. It's an interesting one. The system of Summerhill is actually it's very. I guess rigid is maybe not quite the word. It's very strong, but it's got huge flexibilities within it. And that's what allows the wonderful, all of those wonderful flexibilities and the way that the school moves. And I think that the most important thing is that the children are understanding about relationship. They're understanding the importance of their own rights. They're understanding the way, by living though, they're understanding their own importance as individuals, but they're understanding it by experiencing it. They're understanding it by actually living with other people and realizing, not by someone telling them, but actually realizing by living of how important they are within the community. And how important their voice, regardless of you know, the wonderful world of all of us as individuals. So I think that that's why generally when I do talks, I like to focus a lot on the freedom, not license, because to me that's actually what we lean on the most. The democracy, for example, that we use within our school is a tool to run our community. And from our perspective, it's very important to talk about it in that way. Yes, I don't, did that sort of answer your question?
Yeah,
you know, when I talk about the sort of the foundations of Summerhill, the freedom, not license, the equality, the meeting process, and the non-compulsion to learning, really are the main elements that the meeting process is then the democracy. But those other elements is where, to me, where it's really important, where the focus is. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, I will stop here to hand